You want to talk about horror stories? I'm getting my bathroom done right now. Something's up with the hot water. And of course, I went to go shave right before this. And so I had to shave with cold water. So now my face is all cut up. Living my best life over here, guys.
Okay, so this is perfect timing for Cybersecurity Awareness Month, because I'm sure some of these stories will relate back to what they maybe could have done to avoid it, right? And then Halloween, which is where we're kind of leaning into the spooky aspect of some of these. Who has a story that the result was probably the most expensive IT disaster that they've ever seen?
Yeah, so I mean, one was a company that we were doing ERP work for that had enabled global admins in their cloud environment and for their like Microsoft 365 type stuff, and was syncing those with on-prem domain admins, and then clicked a malicious link on-prem. A domain admin user did. They didn't have conditional access policies in place, and so that allowed the bad guys to take over their cloud environment as well and delete and purge everything. Although we were able to save their ERP data, they lost years of engineering data. Basically everything that UW wasn't managing for them, they lost. And I mean, just our bill was substantial, and I know that they lost a lot more. So it was a pretty expensive weekend for them.
Was that their aha moment where they realized they had to get more security in place?
They definitely changed their security policies and revamped and improved everything from there, for sure. Yeah. And they hired us to manage all that stuff for at least a couple of years to get them brought up to date.
We had a client who they refused to buy our backup solution. Just refused. Just don't need it. We're backing up on our own server, which is just, ridiculous, right? And they had a catastrophic hard drive failure. All right, so it wasn't a bad actor issue. It was just the hard drive crash. There was no good backups. We found one of these companies that restores failed hard drives, right? And you had to plunk down $40,000 cash on the barrelhead before they would even look at it, and they didn't guarantee they could bring your data back. They didn't have a choice. It was their business, right? So they did it. Fortunately, they were able to recover most of the data that was on the hard drive. And we figured out, and then of course, right after that, we stood them back up and got them back in business. And they, of course, then bought the backup solution. And we figured the amount of money that they had spent on that would have been like 15 years of backup solution.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think you stole my story, Mark. I think I lived that scenario. Is what you're.
I think you did too. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think you took the hard drive. You drove it like 100 miles or something, right?
Yeah, it was back and forth for a little bit there. Yeah, but they were in between backup solutions and didn't have them both in sync, and then both the backup software and the server died at the same time. So, yeah, fortunately, those data recovery warehouses actually know what they're doing.
Was that just unlucky? Or is that something we could have expected?
Well, it's unlucky
and poor planning.
It's unlucky, but it's what it is and I bet you most of these stories sort of the moral is stop cheaping out over the stuff that's going to save your company.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I had a client that this is a long time ago. Let's say greater than 20 years ago, at least, that we had set up RAID. It was a full mirror, so RAID 10 is what you would call it today, I think, for their engineering data, large engineering firm. And, it used up a lot. You used half your space just for the redundancy. Not the most efficient storage, but the most reliable. and their new this is before we called them managed services providers, but their new local IT provider came in and said, oh, he's wasting all this disk, really expensive disk at the time, and they changed it over to RAID 5, which can only withstand one drive of failure instead of basically half, and then in the process also managed to somehow break all the alerting and monitoring that was on it. So I didn't get the phone call until the second drive failed. And they were the same deal. They ended up having to go to a recovery place, and it was a 6-figure recovery. But it was either that or just you're out of business. I mean, there was really no in between. So, but that was a while ago.
When you say you didn't get the call, were they trying to handle it internally first?
They tried to handle it with their local IT or whatever.
Okay.
So yeah, it was and then when the second drive failed and they called, and I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. It's too late.
Yeah.
There are so many of those. I had one customer that's still around, and it was infrastructure, I think, that predated us, but they had I wouldn't say two main servers, but they had 2 Buffalo Terror Station rack mount 4-bay NAS units purchased at the same time, which is important. One that they used to back up data using backup exec, and then another one that was the production file server. And it was Mother's Day. It was Mother's Day, not Mother's Day weekend. It was Mother's Day. We were hosting a party at our house. We had just moved in and have all these people over. And I was knocking out some work, restarted both those servers in the morning, and they didn't come back, either of them. And so, I'm trying to figure out what to do. I talked to the president of the company. I go down, I grab the servers. I was like, hey, can I take them home? He's like, yeah, that's fine. So I grab them, take them home, throw them in my basement, and start working on them. And what had happened was they both had disk failures because they were both purchased at the same time, same manufacturer. So their backups are gone, their file server's gone. And fortunately, I'm a hoarder, and I had an old server lying around that could take the capacity for their files. And Mark, I don't know if you remember this, but I think I asked you, like, hey, do you care if I buy this like $50 software to try and recover the data? But you're like, yeah, go do it. So I got this software, had this mess of cables around with all these drives hooked up, and I was able to pull the data off and put it on my server. But this took place throughout the entire day. So I'm copying data, trying different things all day, going outside, flipping burgers on the grill for everybody, and then running back down the basement, just back and forth. And I think it started at like 11 o'clock on Mother's Day, and I finished it at 3 p.m. that Monday. So I didn't sleep the whole time and got them back up and running. They were good, went home and went to bed.
Well, speaking of servers and basements, I've heard a couple stories from Alex and Mark specifically about going on facilities and seeing where they keep their infrastructure sometimes, or their hardware. So do you want to talk about those? Because some of those are kind of crazy.
Oh, I got my favorite one is, so we had we went on site. I don't think actually we were on site. We got pictures of this one. And they just got this location and they want to go see their servers, which are having a bunch of problems. And they go they go take a picture of the server room, and it wasn't a server room. It was their corporate lunchroom, like their company's lunchroom. And protecting the servers were those mats that you had in gym class that were like kids do somersaults on. Around those, just in case something bumps into it. But it was in the middle of the lunchroom. And if I'm not mistaken, I think there's a dog bowl next to it too.
So we had a client, Tom will remember this. They used to keep their server, the server rack was on wheels, and it was plugged in. So you'd walk into their office, you'd walk through the front door, and there was like 2 cubicles right in front of the front door. And in one of the cubicles was their server rack on wheels. So somebody could just come in and unplug it and wheel it out, right? So we said, okay, look, you can't do this, right? I think they needed to get some compliance or whatever. Like, okay, first of all, you can't do this. You got to move this thing into a locked room. And so they said, okay, great. Well, The only locked room, the room with a lock on it that they had was the men's room. And so they rolled the servers into the shower and installed them in, right, Tom? And they installed them in the shower.
Yeah.
But they didn't shut the water. They didn't shut the water down. So somebody could have just gone in and gone and turned the shower head on and sorted out their whole thing. But it was a locked room, and it was right behind the curtain. Like, so, you'd walk in, there's a toilet, curtain, server rack.
Second line of defense.
That's right. Exactly.
So would you say that that's like better than having it in the cubicle?
Ooh.
Now that you know where it was going to go.
I mean, it met the compliance requirement, probably.
It did. It did. I'm sure
about better.
I don't know. Better is the right term. Different would be better way to describe that.
I had speaking of shorting, a really great one. Back once upon a time, you used to hook your central computer. This was a Alpha Micro based shop. So, you had a big, rack sized computer, and then you had serial lines that ran out to terminals all over. And in your remote locations, you had leased lines. So you would have either dial up or leased lines, like 9600 baud lines that went out to these dumb terminals. And at this location, they all came through this telco cage that was full of racked cards that each handled a channel. So each card probably handled 12 or 24 channels, and there'd be 100 lines or whatever come through. We smell smoke in the office and go look, and the smoke's coming out of this telco cage that's like in the back of a closet. And so we pull the power to it, and it keeps smoking. And that's not helping. And get the guy to come out from the phone company, which this is long enough ago. I think it was General Telephone. And the guy comes out, and by then the smoke had mostly stopped, but the thing was not working anymore and had blackened marks all over it. So he pulls all the old cards out, and he's talking while he does this about how expensive and rare these cards are. And they're, however many thousands of dollars per card, right? And he starts plugging the cards back into the cage. And as he plugs them in, the chips on them are popping like popcorn. But he's yakking away and plugging them in. And he must have fried 3 or 4 of the cards before he realized that he was just burning up another set of these things that he was expounding upon how rare they were. And so he yanks them out really quickly, and can't figure out what's happening. It was around this time that somebody said, "Hey, did you see they've got a fire next door?" We all go outside and look, and the power line is laying across the phone lines in the building next door. So he was just cranking whatever those, I don't know, whatever they are, 7,200 volt or 10,000 volt or whatever industrial power lines into the phone lines and just popping the chips on these things. So the protection worked. Nobody got hurt. So,
wow,
that's good.
That was
positive
fun.
side to everything.
Yeah, that was fun.
Jared, this is maybe my favorite story I've been told. And Jared, this is Jared's story, but the kick me sign server, the server on the floor with the do not kick sign.
I forgot all about that. Yeah,
that's one of my favorite stories you told me. So I'll let you tell that one.
Yeah, we had a customer once upon a time that they, for whatever reason, it was a machine shop, of course, and they thought that it would be easier and better if they just made their own rack. So they did. They made a rack. And that worked for the old gear that was in it. But then, one day they got a new server, and it was a big, I think it was an ML350 with the rack kit on it. So it would be a 4U server. The rails didn't work with this thing. They had circle holes that usually the HP rails now expect a square hole. So you just couldn't rack it. So what they did was they put it on the floor, and it was right in front of the door. It's the first thing you see when you walk into the building. And they, over time, I think I had like safety committee meetings or something like that. And somebody determined that this thing was a tripping hazard. So they took a lime green piece of paper and wrote on it, like, careful, do not trip, and put it on the back of the server. That was the solution. Was rather than put it somewhere else, we just put a sign on it.
Awesome.
Don't kick the thing that's running our whole business, please.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that, Alex.
You know, I mean, hardware takes a lot. I had another of those old servers that was out in a machine shop, and got the phone call that the fan was making a weird noise, and then they called the same day and said, "Hey, you really ought to come out here. The fan stopped making the weird noise," which is usually the really bad sign. But the server kept going, and all the monitoring looked fine on it, and temperatures looked fine. And but I'll be out there first thing in the morning, so I went out there and looked and shut it down. And it's out in a machine shop, right? So pull the cover off, and this is a big square server. Pull the cover off, and it is a solid block of metal shavings and oil, just perfectly formed to match the entire interior of the box. And the fan had been slowly carving a little hole in the back of it, but that had finally filled up as well. And I guess it acted as just the perfect heat sink, because the machine kept working just fine. But it was, and it came out in almost a single solid block that you could see all the component shapes. It was like a perfectly molded, aluminum-ish heat sink for the whole thing. So, but I have no idea to this day how it didn't short something out, but server was completely happy. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Any ransomware stories? I know, Alex, you shared one about a guy just getting a call about saying that he was on their IT team and he wasn't.
Oh
that
yeah,
was a simple one, but
yeah, we had someone who the IT manager over there, he gets a phone call from someone. "Hey, I'm on your IT team. I need access. The IT manager told me to give you a call." And of course, the IT manager messed with him a little bit. And it was like, "Oh, really? Who is it? What's his name?" And then by the end of it, it was like, "I'm the IT manager. Who are you?" And then of course, boop, boop, boop. Guy couldn't hang up the phone faster. So he thought he was going to do some social engineering, and turns out he called the one person who he shouldn't have called there. This is trying to yeah, the IT manager told me. I am the IT manager. Bye.
I'll tell you, I got a story about a ransomware that never happened. So we had a client whose network was completely open to the internet, and all of their email passwords were their first names. And we couldn't understand, and they would never change it. They wouldn't change it. They didn't have MFA. It was just completely open to the internet. And we could never understand why, how could these people not get hacked? And then we finally dawned on us that the bad guys probably thought this was like an FBI honeypot trap, that no network in the world could be this open.
Yeah.
That's funny. Wasn't there one too where a whole department or maybe a whole company shared one password to one MFA account where they had to call and get codes from each other?
I have unfortunately see that more times.
Yeah.
Than
I was going to say that's not one company.
I was trying to think of which one you were talking about. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like that'd be a bigger pain than anything, having to call someone to get that.
We still get that request to this day.
Yeah.
Hey, can we just have it ring the office phone? And we have to explain, no, you can't do that. It's not a good idea.
It's
like when your kids are using your Netflix account. Hey, what's the code?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not really my IT horror story, but somebody's, I guess, before the Netflix started cracking down on, the locations and count and stuff like that. I was in a hotel room and, tried to log into Netflix when that was kind of a new thing to be able to do from your hotel. And it didn't work. And I got the, call this phone number. So I call the phone number. And they're like, yeah, you're logged in across most of the East Coast right now. And, so my daughter, who was away at college, had decided, to tell her friends a couple, the Netflix and it didn't take but a week, and there was, 3 states all logged into my Netflix account or something. So. The reason I caught it is because then one of them changed the password.
My 80-year-old dad, his Netflix account inexplicably turned to Spanish. We're like, why is this all in Spanish? So we turned it back to English. Like the next day, it was back in Spanish, and then we went in to look at it, and it turned out that most of Argentina was logged into his Netflix account.
Yeah. Yeah, those are the bad day ones when we go look through, someone's sign-in logs in Azure or M365 Intra. And, guys, you've got to a couple thousand logins from Southeast Asia. I don't think you have any employees over there, right? That's just, those are the bad days. And that's why you need conditional access policies.
Well, and that's the whole point, right, Tom? It's completely preventable. The days where, our favorite server, which was the one that was held together with vice grips and a 2x4.
Yep.
And it ran fine. But, those days are kind of ending.
Yeah.
Because we start to move away from hardware. But the lack of concern about passwords or conditional access or MFA is actually really scary. You're talking about horror story. It really is.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because, that's not going to happen to us, right? That's somebody else's problem.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Lack of understanding of the nature of the problem. I don't know. It is really, it's sad and scary when we see those environments when we walk in.
Mark, that's funny you say that. I had that exact conversation today with someone not using MFA, and that was their exact rationale was, we're not big enough. We're not, who would want to take our stuff? We have nothing to take. And that was a conversation I had, earlier today.
Are you a business with a bank account?
That's exactly.
When we get those calls, out of the blue, that, thankfully not our security customers, but, those, hey, we wired this money for this investment that we were, working on this deal with the real estate, and the real estate guy says he never got it, and you go find out there was some man in the middle of their email for the last 6 weeks, and changing account numbers. We've seen that more than once. Probably way more. Those are scary, and those always tend to be. It seems like they're always the companies that they can't afford to lose that $50,000. Not that anybody wants to lose $50,000, but most of our clients, a $50,000 hit would be a bad day, and they'd be upset and kick themselves and maybe learn a lesson. But it seems like the ones that get hit are the ones where that's like a month's payroll.
It's a company ending.
Yeah.
Or what are they, extinction event.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and talk about creepy, just the thought of somebody monitoring your emails for who knows how long, waiting for that opportunity. Is just somebody looking over your shoulder the whole time is a little creepy.
Right. Yeah.
Some of the new smishing tactics where they just text you like, hey, how's it going? Like, that's it, just to validate your phone number. Like, those freak me out because there's no clear intention.
Yeah.
It's funky.
Or my favorite is the people pretending to be Mark. And I've gotten those messages being in the room with him. Like, hey, I'm in a meeting. You got a second? And I look up and I'm like, yeah, you're in a meeting with me. And I have his cell phone. And so I know it's not him, but it's just like, I find that always hilarious. Like, I'm sitting right here. You could not have timed this more poorly.
Yeah.
Actually, what's really scary is we've had a couple people fall for that.
Jared, can you share your e-key story?
Yeah, I threw it in here because it's kind of spooky, right, around Halloween. Yeah. But I think I was on dispatch still, and I had got a call in the morning that this woman, I don't remember what the customer was, but the woman was very upset. She was worried because it looked like somebody was in her computer. Somebody is typing on her computer. So I'm like, okay, yeah, let's check it out. And so I connect, and she's at the login screen. It's got her name, but the password field is filling in. Okay, yeah, something's going on. So I have her unplug the keyboard just to make sure there's nothing going on there. And because, people eat at their desk and stuff gets stuck in the keys, and it happens all the time. So I had her unplug her keyboard, follow the cable back, pull it out from the back. Now, mind you, I can't see anything. We weren't using Teams at the time, and even cameras were a little less common on like webcams and stuff. So, but anyhow, I had her unplug the keyboard. It's still going on. So I'm like, okay, what could this be? Well, our tool lets you block guest input, our remote support tool. So connected to her machine, I can say no inputs coming from this machine, only allow mine. I did that and it stopped. The little dot stopped progressing. So I was able to log into the machine, and then I opened up Notepad and turned it back on. And what I see is E running across the screen. And I'm trying to figure out, it's like, okay, the keyboard's disconnected. So I just started asking her questions. It's like, what kind of keyboard do you have? And she said, oh, it's a Dell keyboard. I had to get this one because my last one died. I was like, okay, what was your last keyboard? And she tells me it's a Microsoft keyboard. I don't know if you guys remember, it was like super popular, that Microsoft ergonomic keyboard that had the mouse that came with it, and it has like a little receiver thing. Well, she liked the mouse. Yeah, there you go. Tom's got it. She liked the mouse, but she kept the mouse. I was like, well, okay, what did you do with the keyboard? She said, oh, I just threw it in the storage compartment above my desk. Okay, so she opens it up, and sure enough, there was a book that had slid down, and the corner of the book was pressing the E key. But trying to figure that out over the phone with no eyes is pretty difficult. I'm glad we got there. So she was happy because her computer wasn't hacked, and I got a good laugh out of it.
I got a similar one where there's a client, they had a loop going through their network. Right. And their network was down. We figured out they had a loop somewhere, and we couldn't figure out what was going on, how that loop happened, and what the problem was. So we're asking what changed, everything. They're like, oh, yeah, we had painters come in last night, and they repainted all the walls. And so we're like, okay, let's just check all those outlets. And what they had done was unplug both ends of the Ethernet cables just to put them to the side, and then came back in and saw two open ports, and they said, oh, this fits in here. This end looks like it fits in here. Boom, and plugged both sides of the Ethernet cable into the same jack. So the ones right next to each other, creating a loop, which brought their whole business to its their internet to its knees, all because the painters were like, "Yeah, these look like same things. That fits."
The number of times walk in, we're having random network dropouts, network issues, and you go out there and the maintenance man has cleaned up the cabling by cable tying every 12 inches directly to the, main 3-phase thing that runs all of the machines in the shop or whatever,
I have to do a home run wire across the shop. So the easiest way to do it is just to lay them on top of the fluorescent, the fluorescent fixtures.
Yep.
Actually, I think I was with Jared on this one where we've seen internet like Cat5 cables, which they're like that glass innard, bent at a 90-degree angle to the point where we don't want to touch the server, because if we breathed on this cable wrong, we were certain it was going to crack it, or this thing was just being held together by hopes and dreams.
So how about this one? So we had a client in the shop, and they had a bunch of wireless, and in the middle of the day, like starting at about 11:30 until about 1, their admin group on the second floor, or the raised mezzanine, I guess, that overlooked the shop floor, their Wi-Fi would go down. They couldn't figure it out. Like, they could not get Wi-Fi, so everybody would go offline between 11:30 and about 1 o'clock every day. Couldn't figure it out. So they hired us to do a wireless inspection and kind of just do a heat map and figure out where the access points should be and where the problems might arise. So we brought those guys out who do that, and they did that whole thing. And they had a couple of, we'll move this access point over here and add another access point over there, and that'll get the far corners of your shop. And then the other recommendation was replace the 20-year-old microwaves in the break room, because what was happening was the admin were right above the break room. And so these guys would come in, they'd heat up their lunches. These microwaves were so old, they leaked all this RF interference and completely blocked the Wi-Fi from accounting.
Okay, so to give people more takeaways than update your microwaves, can each of you give one key cybersecurity tip for Cybersecurity Awareness Month that kind of relates to all these horror stories?
Take it seriously, because it can and will happen to you. You know, whether you think it won't, it's, oh, this could never happen to me. When you start thinking that way, it will. So just take cybersecurity seriously. It's a real thing that needs real focus.
Mine's simple. Call 2W Tech. We have people that deal with this every day. You know, there's a lot to consider when it comes to network and cloud security, and we've got tons of people over here that that's what they do. They do it every day.
You know, I mean, I got to go for the obvious. Enable multi-factor authentication on every account that offers it, everywhere that it's offered. Don't reuse passwords, especially across email, bank, social media, but really multi-factor authentication. And really, if you're using a service that doesn't offer it, look for an alternative.
I think it's stop stepping over dollars to pick up pennies. It's stop. We see these businesses, and they do all this unnatural stuff in order to save a nickel, and like sharing MFA passwords, and they keep their businesses so exposed, running out of end of life hardware, firewalls. Yeah. Look, if you lived in a bad neighborhood, you wouldn't cheap out on your front door lock. Or even if you live in a good neighborhood, you're not going to cheap out on your front door lock. Don't do that with your cybersecurity, because, as Alex said, it's going to get you. It's just a matter of time.
October 14th is coming next week, end of support for Windows 10, and that there are 0 days that are just sitting out there waiting. It's just silly to not be upgrading. So
and that is truly scary.
Yeah.
Thank you for tying it all in, Mark.